Mr. D, when you and Huyen return to your hometown, how will you build the house? What are your plans after finishing the house?
The house, I'll build it the way my father built ours. Simple, strong, with my own hands. I'll wake up with the sun, cut the bamboo, lay the foundation stone by stone. Huyen will plant flowers by the window, and Maya can help me paint the walls with her little hands. It won't be fancy, but it will be ours. A home made, not just of wood or earth, but of everything we've been through to find each other again. After the house is finished, I just want peace. I want to watch Maya run barefoot through the garden, hear Huyen laugh while hanging laundry in the sun. I'll grow vegetables, maybe raise a few chickens, nothing grand. Just a quiet life where every meal is shared, every sunrise is a gift, and every night we sleep without fear. That's the dream. That's all I need.
The late afternoon sun cast a soft golden hue across the quiet station platform. As the train slowly pulled away, Huyen held Maya close, the little girl's warm breath brushing against her neck. As she stared out the window in wonder, D sat across from them, his eyes silently watching the passing scenery, fields, rivers, distant mountains, his heart full of both hope and quiet fear. They were going home. After months of struggle and heartache in the borderlands, after building and losing a house, facing danger from Tuvi's past, and watching their dreams of a peaceful life slip through their fingers, D and Huyen had made the only decision they could: to return to the north, to the land where they were born, to begin again. But even as the train rumbled toward familiar soil, a question weighed heavily on both of them. Where would they live now? The small village station greeted them with the scent of damp earth and the sound of cicadas echoing in the trees. Maya ran ahead, her laughter filling the air as Bibi barked beside her. Huyen stood still for a moment, taking in the view the gentle bend of the road, the rice fields stretching out in the distance, the wooden bridge she used to cross as a child. "This is home," she whispered. "But where do we go now?" D placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "We'll figure it out, one step at a time." Their old house, Huyen's childhood home, still stood, but it had been abandoned for years. The bamboo walls leaned, the roof sagged, and wild vines had crept through the windows. Huyen's parents had long passed, and there was no one left to maintain it. They spent the first night on woven mats beneath a broken roof, listening to the wind whistle through the cracks. D tried to smile for Maya, but he could feel Huyen's exhaustion beside him, her hope slowly fading. The next morning, the village buzzed with quiet curiosity. Huyen and D were back, everyone had heard. Some remembered the day she left, bruised and silent, carrying Maya in her arms. Now she had returned with the same child, taller, brighter, and a man who stood protectively by her side. A few neighbors offered warm greetings. Some gave rice, and others simply nodded with kind eyes. But when D asked if there was a place to rent or land to build on, every answer came back the same: "I'm sorry, not now." The days passed. Huyen swept the dusty floors of the old house, patched the roof with palm leaves, and tried to plant a few vegetables in the hardened soil. But it wasn't enough. Maya needed a real home. Then, one afternoon, as rain clouds gathered in the sky, a cart rolled down the path in front of their house. An old man climbed down, bent, weathered, with kind eyes that held a memory Huyen couldn't place. "Are you Mr. Ku? She asked, stepping out. He smiled. I was your father's friend. I heard you came back. He looked at the broken house, at the muddy garden, at the quiet strength in Dee's eyes. You can't raise a child here. The roof won't last another storm. Huyen's voice trembled. But we have nowhere else to go. Mr. Ku turned and pointed toward the hillside. I have a small plot of land, unused since my wife passed. There's an old shed there. It's not much, but if you're willing to work, it could become a home. The next morning, with Maya on Dee's back and their belongings piled into a borrowed cart, they made their way to the hill. The land was quiet, the air fresh with the scent of guava trees. The shed was small but dry. This is enough, Dee said softly. This is where we begin again. And as the clouds parted and the first rays of morning sun spilled across the soil, Huyen took Dee's hand and whispered, "Let's build our future here with kindness, with hard work, and with hope. Because sometimes, even after all the pain, a single act of generosity is enough to plant the seeds of a new life." The first days on the hillside were quiet but full of purpose. Dee woke up early each morning, his hands rough from digging trenches and chopping wood. Huyen, with her sleeves rolled up and hair tied back, swept out the shed, cleaned old pots, and began turning the dusty corner into a warm kitchen. Maya, ever cheerful, followed them like a little bird, sometimes singing, sometimes playing with Babi, sometimes helping in her own small ways by gathering firewood or holding nails while Dee hammered. At night, they sat under a simple oil lamp. The wind outside whispered through the trees, but inside, laughter bloomed. They shared boiled sweet potatoes, rice with pickled vegetables, and on lucky days eggs from a neighbor's chicken. Huyen had brought a few old seeds from the city, and she planted them in neat rows behind the shed. "We'll grow our own vegetables," she said one evening, "and sell the extra at the market." "But the market here isn't like the one in the city," Dee replied gently. "It only opens twice a week. We'll have to work hard." "I know," she smiled, "but we're used to that, aren't we?" One morning, after walking Maya to the village school for the first time, Huyen stood at the gate a little longer than usual. The school was small, its paint chipped, but it was clean, and the teacher smiled kindly. "Maya is a bright child," the teacher, Ms. Tom, said. "She'll do well here." Huyen nodded, tears stinging her eyes. "I just want her to be safe and happy." Days turned into weeks. The shed slowly transformed. Dee added bamboo walls, a real door, and even carved a wooden shelf for Maya's books. Huyen sewed curtains from old cloth and started raising ducks in the back. A neighbor gifted them to hens after hearing about their situation. "You helped Mr. Tu's old mother back in the day," the woman said. "People don't forget that." Kindness, it seemed, had come full circle. But not everything was easy. One rainy night, water leaked through the corner of the roof. Maya had a fever, and Dee stayed up all night fanning her with a leaf while Huyen made herbal tea from wild ginger. There were days when they had barely enough rice, and others when they walked for miles just to borrow tools. Still, no one complained. Not once. because every hardship they faced now was different from before this time. They were building something truly theirs. One evening, as they sat outside watching the sun dip behind the hills, Maya pointed up at the sky. "Mommy, look, a shooting star. Quick, make a wish," Huyen said, laughing. Maya closed her eyes. "I wish our house will be big one day, with a garden full of mango trees. And I wish Uncle Adam will visit us soon." Dee and Huyen exchanged a quiet look. "Do you think he'll come?" she asked. "He promised," Dee said, his voice soft, "and he always keeps his word." Some nights, when the moon was full and the wind carried the sound of distant flute music from the village, Huyen would close her eyes and feel peace, real peace, not the kind built on running or fear, but the kind born from roots deep, steady, and growing. Their home was no longer made of cement and tiles. It was built of sweat, laughter, trust, and dreams whispered under the stars. And while their journey had not been smooth, they had finally arrived where they were always meant to be, home. A lesson from Dee and Huyen: the power of starting over with love and courage. Life does not always go as planned. Sometimes the dreams we work so hard to build fall apart before our eyes. But from the story of Dee, Huyen, and little Maya, we learn that even in moments of loss and uncertainty, we can find the strength to begin again if we have love, courage, and the will to keep going. Huyen and Dee left behind a house they had worked hard to build, a home filled with hopes of a peaceful life. But when danger came close, and the land they lived on was no longer theirs, they made a brave decision to return to their homeland. It wasn't an easy choice. They had no job waiting, no clear place to stay, and only a few bags of belongings. But what they did have was each other. When they returned to their village, things were not simple. Their old home was broken and almost unlivable. No one had a place for them. But even in the face of disappointment, they didn't give up. Dee worked with his hands, Huyen planted vegetables, and Maya, despite everything, kept smiling. Their lives slowly began to take shape again. One of the most important lessons we learn from their journey is this: home is not always a house. Sometimes it is the people you love, the safety you feel, and the courage you carry within. They were helped by the kindness of an old neighbor, Mr. Ku, who offered them a small piece of land. That moment teaches us another powerful truth. When we help others, even with something small, we might change a life. Their days were filled with hardship: leaky roofs, empty rice jars, and long walks to find tools or water. But not once did they complain. Why? Because this time, they were not running. They were rebuilding. They were free. They were building a life for Maya, and that gave them the strength to continue. In the end, what matters most is not how big your house is or how much money you have. What matters is the love you share, the honesty in your heart, and the hope you hold onto. Dee and Huyen's story reminds us all, even if life tears everything away, we can start again. And sometimes, starting over is the most beautiful part of the journey.